morning. Oh my goodness. That was so funny. I wasn't even paying attention. I thought I done disconnected something. Like everything just went off. What happened? How are you?
I'm good, thanks. And yourself?
I am well. I am well. It's been a week. It's been a week, but a good week. Productive week. I like productive. So that's all
Okay.
good. And you? And you?
Oh, I'm always busy.
I know
Thank
you
goodness.
are.
Thank goodness.
I know you are. Wait a minute. Let me turn you up over here. Okay. So I can hear you. Okay. All right. All right. Good morning, Renita. Got anybody else in here? No. Well, good morning, everybody. Well, oh, it's right at 9. I was like, wait, I feel like I'm a little early, but I think we right on time. We right on time. Right on time.
There you go.
Right on time. All right. All right. Well, let's get this party started. Welcome, welcome to our Saturday morning tea where we discuss health information, news, education, certification, tips and exams and stuff,
Yeah.
entrepreneurship, the revenue cycle at large, just all of the things, all of the things. And as you come in, don't forget to hit the thumbs up or like button. Let us know that you were here. I am Clarice Warner, the girl with the pearls, the founder and senior education director of the Professional Reimbursement Network, LLC, where coding education is key. And PRN is a healthcare compliance consultancy located in Cincinnati, Ohio, that specializes in revenue cycle and regulatory compliance and education. Now, let me ask, do you know what it takes to be a certified marketable keyword medical coder? Well, before I introduce my co-host, let me share with you information on a free email course on the 5 steps to become a certified marketable medical coder. Are you interested in medical coding but not sure where to start and scared of wasting time and resources? Let me help you with the right steps to become a certified marketable medical coder. Learn more at bit.ly/5stepscoder. All right, all right. And if you are interested in getting more information about the 5 steps to become a certified marketable medical coder, and you are joining us via Clubhouse, you can click the link at the top of the house. If you're joining us via YouTube, Facebook, and or LinkedIn, you can check out the video description for the link. So joining me today is the illustrious, my co-host, Mr. Jesse, the registered trademark. Put some respect on his name, the coding nurse. Sir, introduce yourself and tell the folks all about you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jesse. I live in Philadelphia. I have been an LPN for 30 years and switched over or transitioned into HIM in 2014. During the pandemic, in 2020, I created a company, the Coding Nurse LLC, where I help nurses and other people with clinical backgrounds in healthcare transition into the wonderful world of HIM.
And how's all that going?
It's coming along pretty good.
I love it. I love it. I love it. That's what I love to hear. I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm glad. So glad for you. All right. So before we jump in, let me remind those of you who are watching us that you can join in and add to the conversation. This is a conversation. We want to hear your thoughts. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Your opinion matters and is welcomed here. Your jokes matter and are welcome to hear. The shade, the tea, all of it is mattered. All of it matters and is welcomed here. So feel free to if you're on Clubhouse and want to join in on the conversation, just raise your hand and we'll bring you up to the stage. If you are joining us via Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, definitely just use the chat to, hey Shay, how are you? Welcome. Use the chat to provide your comments or entertainment, if you will. Don't forget, if you have a question, all I ask is that you type Q first so that we know it is a question and we don't miss it. So for those who are just joining us, today we are going to review the Lippmann's 2023 HIM professional census. But before we go there, right before we go there, y'all know what time it is. It is church announcements time. Let me cue up my church announcement music. Come on now. Where you gonna find places that give you church announcements? Not only do they provide you church announcements, but they give you the music, get you in the spirit and the mood of hearing those church announcements. Where will you find that on these here internet streets? I promise I'm gonna find one and I'm gonna mail it to you. How about that? We're gonna have fans all over in this piece. Bulletins, all of the things. We'll have it all. All right. So our church announcement for today. What'd she say? Wait a minute. Oh, yes. First, giving honor to God. Amen. Who is the head of my life. Amen. Amen. See, y'all, I know some church folks. Y'all know what to do. Y'all, we well churched up in here. Well churched. And it's okay. If you're not, it's okay. It's okay. We'll get you together. You'll be well churched by the time you're done with us. And you, I love it. I love it. Oh my goodness. Okay. So today's church announcement, for those of you who are members, professional members of AHIMA, voting. So voting starts on Monday. And it starts at 8 a.m. Central Time through July 24th at 5 p.m. Central Time. And there are electing folks for the following positions. They're looking for one person for the president/chair-elect, one or three people for board directors. I don't know about the butcher this. CCHIIM, is it CHIHIM? Commissioners, they're looking for three folks there. They have a full slate in all of these, so it's going to be a race for sure. CEE council members, there are 2 open positions, and there's 1 speaker-elect of the House of Delegate position open. You should have, or if you haven't already, received information from AHIMA on voting and the candidates, their bios, all of the things. I will be remiss if I do not. I have to make a plug for my sister girl, Tanya Bates, who out of Ohio, who is running for board director. If y'all don't have anybody in y'all spot, please throw your vote over that way to Tanya Bates, board director out of Ohio. She's been the one that I done sat back and watched during my whole board career. And I said, okay, ma'am, you move, I'm moving. We playing chess over here, not checkers. So yes. So please, if you don't have, and there are a lot of folks in different states that are running, but if you don't have anybody in particular and you just out here using your votes, please use your vote for Tanya Bates. Okay, that's my church announcement for today. Mr. Jesse, did you have any church announcements?
Not at this time.
Not with the, I feel like the usher finger was going up and you was sneaking out the back. Wait a minute. Oh my God, this is gonna be silly today. I feel it in my spirit. All right. Any church announcements for the good of the order? Anybody in the comments with a church announcement? No, I don't see any church announcements in here. Welcome, welcome. So good morning, Tasha. Renita, I don't think I put yours in there. Good morning, good morning. Good morning to the crafty coder. Says good morning, Saturday morning tea crew. Yeah, we have become a whole crew over here. Good morning, Dr. Lisa. Yes, yes. Our first giving honor to God again, getting us ready and getting our minds right as we prepare to bring you the tea. So today, we want to talk about Littman's education. And they put together 2023 HIM professional census. Let me share my screen so you all can see what I'm seeing. And I just, when I went through it, I said, well, wait a minute. I see some things that we need to talk about.
It's pretty comprehensive.
Very comprehensive, very comprehensive. So, and I think in the description box, I think I linked the information on how you can get it, because it's a free resource for them. You may have to give your name and email address. That's, y'all know how we do. But but the good thing about that is once you provide your information, then you will be asked to provide information on next year's census, or I don't know how often they do this, but on the following census. So because they actually use their people that they know. So before we get into it, let me just give you the spiel on the census. It was released in April 2023. So they sent emails out to all of their newsletter subscribers and people who are affiliated through them via email. So again, you get the information on the census. You have to give up your email. You become part of the list, and then you get information from them on, I think they send stuff out, if not once, maybe twice a week. So the responses were received during April and May. They sent them to over 60,000 subscribers. They also promoted it in HIM related social media. They received 1,400 HIM professionals responses. They admit that the sample is no doubt skewed to those who work in facilities, particularly coders in the inpatient setting, due to their customer base and industry reputation. And then they did have a new feature for the 2023 census, which was to, quote, branch the census taker by job function, allowing the results to provide insight into the varied perspectives of managers and coders. So this just gives an introduction about healthcare and HIM professionals and the key role that we play in the revenue cycle of healthcare organizations, ensuring the flow of appropriate reimbursement for services by providing accurate coding, completed, timely, and able to withstand the probing of external auditors. It says, as HIM professionals increase and broaden their skills, they increase their value to their organization, advance in specialized coding, as well as alternative careers in auditing, CDI, and HCCs, build upon the skilled coders' knowledge of documentation, coding, and reimbursement to provide a natural career path. And then the census identifies the challenges and opportunities HIM professionals face and their key role in ensuring the financial stability and regulatory compliance of their employers. So what they found was um, that the hospital-based employees, specifically inpatient coders, pretty much took over the results, which I mentioned earlier. Respondents are an experienced group. Most of them have been in HIM and or coding for over a decade. Again, I think connecting to them, especially if you are newer to the profession, will allow some balance, so you can kind of you get a better feel for the data. I got my data analyst guru on right here with me, so he can attest to data in, data out. So um, that could have assisted in kind of leveling some of the things out. But anyway, 8 in 10 people surveyed report a salary in excess of $50,000 per year, and 1/4 receive in excess of $90,001 per year. RHIA and RHIT were the most common management credentials. CCS and CPC were the most common coding credentials. It said coders and managers share many of the same general concerns about the future, such as preparing for external changes. And that was the thing that kind of, I was like, okay, made me want to bring this and spill some tea on this one. Let's see how the coding process is organized. Post-COVID, remote work is the norm among HIM professionals. Careful management of work queues is a key aspect of an efficient coding process. Outsourcing and offshoring. Managing outsourced coders, including those located offshore, is an increasingly important challenge. Slightly more than half of respondents report their organization outsources some or all of their coding functions. Inpatient coding and emergency room coding were the most likely to be outsourced. While most outsourcing uses domestic service providers, potentially less expensive, offshore providers are also used. 20% of managers express concern about managing offshore or blended domestic and offshore coding teams. Mr. Jesse, I know you got a whole bunch to say about that. Credentials and performance metrics. Nearly 90% of organizations require a coder to maintain a coding credential or to become credentialed. Performance metrics are used by organizations to manage and incentivize coding staff. Opportunities for training or advancement, salary or compensation, and work assignments. Speaking of that, when we were at the leadership um, symposium in Chicago, there was some discussion. I know it was at our table and maybe at the table next to us about, and I think we actually eventually end up bringing the information or having the discussion with the group. But once upon a time, not too long ago, in these coding streets, states had, I don't remember if there was a federal mandate or was it just a state mandate, but you had to be a certified coder in order to work in an HIM department or to code in an HIM department. And somewhere along the way, a lot of states walked that back. There are a sprinkling of states who still hold those mandates on the book, but the majority of them walked that back. And so there was a large discussion about that on the why behind that and what do folks need to do to bring that back, because they felt like that was very, very important in dealing with some of the some of the creep that happens in our profession. And so that just made me think about that. Anyway, finding new coding staff, recruitment of new coding staff to fill openings remain a challenge for many organizations. Cross-training staff from other internal positions was the most effective way to attract new coders in 2023. Networking with peers and working with recruiters or placement companies were used to find new staff. Onboarding, cross-training, and upskilling. Internal mentorship and intensive review of coding were the top methods for new coder onboarding. Training is most often based on individual performance or career goals, with additional training in response to overall group productivity or quality audit results and denials. General inpatient coding and coding of cardiovascular services were the top topics for training. Training companies, internal sharing, and internal training staff were the most used training options as to what is preferred. Most respondents preferred training companies. Webinars, online courses, and live instruction were the top method of coder training. Half or fewer respondents report their organization provides financial support for training. Training success was measured by coding quality, internal audit results, and productivity. And then Lippman kind of gave themselves a plug about them being very good or excellent, according to the census responses of people that they've already done business with. Was that shade? I'm sorry. It's like, really?
They're really good.
Yes, yes. Internal auditing, CDI, and HCC build upon knowledge of documentation, coding, and reimbursement, and may provide a natural career path for skilled coders. Internal auditing, internal auditors require both coding experience and the ability to communicate audit results effectively. The majority of organizations require internal auditors to hold a coding credential. With your CDI specialist knowledge of coding and billing guidelines was most often mentioned as a challenge. I know you all over this. CDI credentials are required by half of respondents' organizations. Fewer than half require CDI specialists to hold medical or nursing degrees. Fewer than 1/3 require a coding credential. With HCCs, about 1/4 of census takers indicate their organization has or is developing a CDI program focused on HCCs. An additional 1 in 5 indicates their CDI team responsible for DRG accuracy also evaluates HCCs. About half of the organizations require HCC coders to hold a coding credential. Social determinants of health. While most organizations code and report social determinants of health, respondents are unsure what social determinants of health are being used for. Ooh, okay. And then planning for ICD-11. HIM professionals report they are preparing for ICD-11 by becoming familiar with the code set and keeping informed about ICD-11 implementation plans. Mr. Jesse, you want to say anything before we get into this detailed report of the findings?
This overview is really something. I mean, there's so many points, to talk about, but I just, the whole offshoring thing, I just don't understand because there's so much of a need for coding domestically. I don't understand why why there's not more of an incentive for companies and organizations to train people. Even if you just hire people and put them through, 4 weeks of training, or like a boot camp or something, and bring those people in, into the industry. I don't understand. I mean, I because in the long run, are these organizations saving money by offshoring? Yes, but there is a price to be paid because somebody has to fill in the gap. And what ends up happening is the domestic people end up bearing the brunt or trying to fill in the gaps for the lack of skill from the offshore people who are working for less money. I just don't understand. So,
And it seems like you're throwing, to your point, how does that financial gain balance out if you still have to put money in on the back end to pay someone to correct the many errors that may be found, and or pay payers if there's an audit and there's a recruitment that comes about? So I mean, I'm like you. How How are you balancing those dollars? I mean, how's that a win?
I just want to share one quick example. Earlier this week, I had,
Let me
coded
get my
for,
tea.
I had handled a case. So it went into, went to coding for final coding. The, um, the outsourced coder had contacted me. The person had sepsis due to UTI. They were older, and they had altered mental status. And we all know that there are a lot of people, especially older people, when they have UTIs, they do have altered mental status. Well, this person was diagnosed with metabolic encephalopathy due to the sepsis, and the treatment for metabolic encephalopathy is not direct. You treat the cause. And the difference between the key to metabolic encephalopathy is there should be a return to baseline or some improvement in their mentation from when they were admitted to the hospital. You have to see some kind of improvement, otherwise it's not metabolic encephalopathy. So the code tells me, so this was ended up being like an 870, DRG 871 with the metabolic encephalopathy. It was the only MCC. The coder writes me and tells me that metabolic encephalopathy was not treated, so she deleted the code, which changed the DRG back to from 871 to 872, which is like a change in the DRG by like 0.9, which is pretty significant in terms of reimbursement. So so I had to actually I had to go and find two examples in the chart to show. First, I had to explain to her how you treat metabolic encephalopathy, and then what you look for to validate it. And there was an example on day 2, and on day 4, where it was documented by providers the patient was less confused, more alert. That's your validation for your metabolic encephalopathy. So I had to type all that up and explain it to her, and then tell her to put the code back so I can reconcile the case. So that's a loss in productivity.
It is.
Take out that time to do that kind of education.
It is. It is. So again, like, how is that justified? That's crazy to me. Crafty Coder says incentivized versus fired on the performance metrics. Yes. And welcome, T. Williams. Good morning. I am not a coder, but I love your show. Thank you. And we love you for being here. I enjoy listening and learning. I am in my 50s, as are most of us, and I will be retiring in a few years. I am planning to self-study for CCS to have after I retire. Well, welcome to the world of health information through medical coding. Welcome. And thanks for joining us. I'm glad we were able to help. All right. Okay, so let me find the screen again and get back into this report. Okay, so Alice, like I said, if you want to find the link, you can hit the link. So the folks, respondents were all over the US. Most of them were California, Texas, Florida. Lord, y'all about to hit me with geography. I don't know what this is over here. Whatever this is over here.
That's New York.
No, this whole thing right
here?
Yeah. Okay. I thought New York was itty bitty. New York. You're right, because you cross over. Okay. We got some Ohio. This you, right?
Yeah.
Indiana.
And next to Indiana on the left is Illinois.
Illinois. What's up here?
Michigan.
Okay. I'm glad y'all got it. Because
no, I'm sorry. That's Minnesota. Michigan is above. Yeah, that's Michigan.
Yeah. Okay. And then is this?
That's North Carolina.
Oh, they got some folks over here. Not as many, but I was kind of looking at the strong. So the darker the color, the more the respondents.
that one, oh, no, that's Minnesota. Michigan is next to Minnesota. It's I think isn't Optum one of those big companies is based in Minnesota.
Really?
Mhm.
Okay. So maybe they got a lot of folks. So this again shows, their reach where they oh, and they say those states with larger healthcare organizations. Okay. Yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on over here in Ohio, so not as much as Texas is dark, and Florida and New York. So the big ones, of course, are all that. And so it says number 1379 was the actual number, I think, of respondents that they got. All right. So here, most of them, 75%, have 11 or more years. Again, I think it would probably been a more interesting or more balanced uh, census, if you will, if they have respondents that were new coming in, as well as, wait a minute, hold up. So I guess they didn't have to answer every question because the number is changing. Okay. So they only had 3% who are brand spanking new folks from 0 to 1 year, 2 to 5 years, 7%, and then 15%, 6 to 10. Yeah, because it's a whole different experience if you've been in this game for 10 years or more. So I would have loved to see more um, of the respondents in these areas here. But it is what it is. We got what we got. It's a start. And so the salary ranges, it says 8 and 10 people, or I said this already, 50,000 or more per year. The largest cohort was the 50,000 to 70,000, as you see, 31%. Then you had 70 to 90,000, 24%, 90 to 110, 14, and 110 and above, 11%. Then you also had those who preferred not to answer. 2% doing less than 30,000. I'm concerned for those. No, I'm kidding. Like, where y'all working and what y'all doing? Oh, they better be. And 30 to 50,000 is 14%. Again, they mentioned that because of their this information went out to kind of their list of folks who subscribe to their newsletters or who've been customers of theirs. It's primarily from the hospital or medical center perspective, as you see with 69%. Consultant or vendors, 14%. Physician office or medical practice, 12%. Outpatient ambulatory center, 10%. Post-acute, your SNFs, your long, I'm about to, LTAC, home health, hospice, those folks, 5%. School or other educational provider, I'm glad they had those there, 4%. And then other, I don't know what the others represent, but you had 10% of others. And I don't see where they broke that other down either. So I'll be interested in what that other category encompasses. Most of the folks who responded were coders, as you see, overwhelmingly 51%. We had auditors, educators, trainers, coding supervisors or managers, directors, CDI specialists, analysts, consultants, billers, administrators or executive, practice office managers. There were none. Provider, physician, or nurse, 0.4%. And again, another other category as well. Credentials. Again, because this was inpatient driven and led, you saw RHIA, RHITs at 52%, CCS at 41%, CPC 28%, and then the credentials go from there. There were some nurses, RN, LPNs, 4%, CCAs, 4%, CCDS, 4%, no credential, 1%. CCS-P 6%, CDIP 6%, CRC 5%, and other is a 20%. So again, I would want to know what those others are. Or maybe those were the ones that the CDEO, CEMC, CIR, CC, CIC, CDEI. Okay.
And nobody ever mentions home care coding, like the HCSP credential. Nobody ever mentions them. Like they get no love, and that's not an easy exam either.
Right. And they mentioned that they did have respondents from that area, so I don't know why those wouldn't. Yeah. They're just your all credentials are important. You put in that time and that work and you that energy and receive those credentials. They're important as well. Okay, over half of the census respondents work with codes or coding directly. An additional 3 in 10 work with codes or coding directly and also oversee those who do. So that is that. And then they talked about, again, it's mostly because of the information, the respondents, inpatient, then outpatient, same day surgical daycare, ambulatory surgery centers, emergency department, physician office, and professional fee services. They got your home care or home health down here as well. HCC, and then the other. Okay, the concerns. So it says, as you consider your future in the HIM profession, what are your concerns? 72% mentions how work is done. And this is broken down by what manager said and what coder said. So the lighter bar is what the manager said, and the darker colored green bar is what the coder said. Coding changes, they're kind of almost neck and neck there, as well as professional development. Preparing to retire. There are more coders who mentioned preparing to retire. And managers are more concerned about how the work is done. Mr. Jesse, you want to speak to any of that?
No.
Okay. As you consider your future in the HIM profession, what are your concerns? The majority says keeping up to date on annual changes to code classifications. That was the primary. Increasing productivity demands. Didn't we talk about that? Now, that one we have talked about. Keeping current with advances in technology that affect my job. AI, chat, GPT, etc. Tied with that, preparing for ICD 11 and other major revisions to the code classifications. Increasing my skills to advance my career, increasing quality demands, preparing for my retirement, losing my job to offshore coders, 33%, preparing for new roles or responsibilities in my organizations. They had another group, and then looking for my first HIM related job, 3%. They didn't get a full breadth of answers for this. There was only 684 who answered these, but this is what they said. Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is a query. Anytime I see other, please specify.
You get triggered.
I see it all day long.
Now, this one was what the coder said. The managers said, they both felt, well, no, theirs were a little different. The managers said attracting and retaining coding staff is their top concern. Improving the quality of my coding team's work. Keeping my staff up to date on annual changes to code classifications. Preparing for ICD 11. Increasing my skills to advance my career. Deploying new technologies. Preparing for new roles or responsibilities in my organization, increasing my coding team's productivity, preparing for retirement, managing offshore or blended domestic offshore coding teams. So that's what, and then it was even less, well, they probably didn't have as many managers, but Those were 337 who responded. I'm concerned about the RHIT degree being phased out and what that means for me and others who have an AS degree and RHIT certification. That's from an HIM director. Another acute care hospital coder said self-educating when employers don't pay to maintain CEUs or memberships to AHIMA, AAPC, etc. Inflation makes it even more difficult to afford these things. All right. How the coding process is organized. Do you work remotely or do you work on site? And you can see the blue ones, the blue band is 100% remote. The purple is a mixture or hybrid, I guess. And the yellow is 100% on site. So you see remote is the thing here for us. Even though a lot of the remote work was actually happening prior to COVID. In the last year, has your organization increased the requirement for HIM or coding staff to work on site for at least some of each week? 5% said yes, the overwhelming majority said no. And then some said yes, but only some staff. So I believe remote work is here to stay in this part in our profession as it relates to coding staff and HIM folks. What are the advantages of HIM coding staff working on site? The light green is what manager said, the dark green, what coder says. Encourages collaboration with providers and others, facilitates cross-training and internal mentoring, allows for closer supervision, provides secure workplace to address PHI concerns, and others. Perhaps not surprisingly, coders were less likely than managers to view closer supervision as an important advantage of on-site work. I think those probably were some micromanagers. But anyway, there were 913 of the folks that answered that. This talks more about what are the advantages of working remotely. Quality of life, work-life balance. I think that is the highest. That was what both of them kind of sort of agreed on. Greater productivity. Coders said that. Managers, not as much. Facilitates cross-training and internal mentoring, and then other. Being remote allows us to recruit from a larger pool of applicants. We only bring remote teams on site with intention or a specific purpose. On-site enhances troubleshooting and reviewing challenging cases. However, with the correct approach, this can be achieved remotely. The work queue assignments. At your organization, how are cases assigned to each coder's work queue? By location of service, by type of specialty or body system, by level of difficulty, easier records versus more complex, and then others. So this talks about how folks are getting their work. Single path coding. This is defined as performing both the facility coding and the professional fee coding for the same patient account by the same coder in the same workflow. 38% says, yes, we use single path coding currently or have used it in the past. 62% says, we're not playing in those waters. How is or was single path coding used at your organization? CPT coding of professional fee services and facility charges, ICD-10 PCS coding of surgical procedures, CPT coding of surgical procedures, and E&M rounding charges. Specific departments only, like emergency department or other. So most of them, 48%, was the CPT coding of professional fee services and facility charges, what they said. Here's our favorite topic. Outsourcing and offshoring. So managers outsource coders. Managing outsourced coders, including those located offshore, is an increasingly important challenge for those responsible for coding, production, and quality. 20% of managers express concern that managing offshore or blended domestic and offshore coding teams. Does your organization outsource some or all coding? 55%. Yes, we outsource some or all coding currently or in the past. 37% says no, we don't play those games. And 8% says I am a provider of outsourced coding services. Okay. Hospitals and medical centers were most likely to outsource some or all coding. What types of coding are outsourced fully or partially at your organization? Inpatient 52%, emergency department 51%. I know I used to see a lot of contract workers doing or recruiting for emergency department coding. Outpatient and clinic, surgical, daycare, ambulatory surgery centers, ancillary services, physician office or professional fee services, lab, ancillary radiology, other, post-acute, HCC risk adjustment, and inpatient rehab. So overwhelmingly, it's the inpatient and emergency department. Yes, Mr. Jesse.
I'm just surprised and shocked to see that 52% of inpatient coding is either fully or partially outsourced. Because I mean, inpatient is responsible for a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know how you can trust that kind of revenue to outsource people. Like, I had a case yesterday. I closed it out. The patient expired, but the bill was like $670,000. Like,
But remember, this outsourcing includes domestic outsourcing as well as I think offshoring. So, they've been outsourcing for years, just, like in nursing where they have agency workers that'll come in and for take over if there's like vacancies, vacations, that kind of stuff. So you've had coding or HIM organizations come in and assist with those types of things as well, vacations or, staffing changes. They can't find coders to pick up the slack, but the work still is there and or increasing. So they may contract with an organization to come in and do some of that. So this is not necessarily just the offshoring folks.
Okay. And that's true, because actually the majority of my career I've worked for third-party companies who have contracts with, people to oversee or to review their code.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. More than half of individuals whose organization outsources some or all of their coding report that coding is outsourced to domestic or onshore service providers. So most of them, 57% of them, they're using the domestic folks. 17% said there's a blend. 15% says foreign offshore coding services. So they just turned it over. And I don't know what other would represent, but other is 11%. Now this one is interesting. Like, okay. And the reason. So in your experience with offshore providers of coding services, what are the advantages? 61% said lower costs. 26% says a 24-hour coding cycle. 8% said better productivity. 4% said coders with advanced training. And 2% said better quality. I was trying to read what they, though neither were mentioned by most respondents, better productivity was 4 times more likely than better coding quality to be mentioned as an advantage. Surprisingly, few respondents indicated coders with advanced training, i.e., those with medical degrees or clinical training, was a significant benefit of offshoring. Mm-hmm. And these numbers are way low here. Okay. In your experience with offshore providers of coding services, what are the challenges? Time difference and other communication issues, 57%, as well as lesser quality, 57%. Consistency with our approach to coding, 48%. Language or cultural differences, 43%. Want to maintain only US coders, 27%. Privacy and security, 26%. Other, again, we don't know what that is, 24%. Blending with domestic staff and services, 17%, and lesser productivity, 15%. Mr. Jesse.
The whole, it's time difference and other communication issues. I mean, it could, I just want to focus on the lesser quality piece because that is just what I've seen, consistently like through the years. I mean, and it's not changing. It's not getting better, and I just don't understand why. And I don't, I understand that it's for money, but I just don't see the benefit when you can just train people domestically to do the exact same thing. And my main concerns are lesser quality and privacy and security because HIPAA doesn't apply to anywhere except for the United States.
Yep.
So your information can be literally anywhere.
And is that something that consumers of healthcare services, do they know that?
Mm-mm.
I don't think they know that.
Me either.
I don't think that's something that's broadly. I mean, when you sign off on all those papers, I don't recall seeing a line anywhere that says, and yes, your information may be sent overseas for XYZ purposes. I don't recall that being a line. That's interesting. Okay, let's see. Did you have anything specific that you wanted to get into?
Yeah, I wanted to get into the crafty coders two comments.
Okay. Or on the street correspondent.
Yeah.
Let's see. She says, whoever got them people on site needs to let them people go home and stop trying to micromanage. Ma'am, you already know that was micromanage 101. Everybody read through that. I got mixed feelings about single path coding. You really have to make sure that coder knows PCS coding and understands how it works. You are absolutely right. I remember the discussion of this blending in because I guess they couldn't find enough coders in both of those tracks. So your inpatient coders versus your outpatient coders. Here, let me pull this down for a minute. You couldn't find that. And it's a different skill set off top. It's an entirely different skill set. And while don't get me wrong, it can be done. We can do it. You just have to make sure that person, because historically you were either going into the inpatient side of the world or you were going into the outpatient or professional side of the world. So that's where you gained your experience, your knowledge, your mastery, if you will, in those particular areas. Now, can you code inpatient? Of course you can, but you don't have that same level of mastery in that area off top. And I guess so there's kind of a curve. You can pick it. It's like riding a bike. You can pick it back up. Now, if you rode that bike prior to PCS, that's a whole different that's a whole different mindset, and that's a whole different thing that you actually have to learn. I don't know. I just think it can be done. I just believe these organizations should have some robust training involved and associated with that if they're doing the single path coding. Um, but they don't want to pay. They don't even want to pay the coders. Let's start there. So will they invest the money in making sure that their single path coders are trained appropriately to do those particular jobs? I don't know. She says, I mean, for professional surgery coding, you don't even need some of the stuff for PCS. You might have one CPT code choice and 15 PCS codes. Exactly. So again, you need people who are well versed in understanding PCS, because on the outpatient side, they don't have to pick up a PCS manual at all, and vice versa. In some inpatient coding, you don't have to be concerned with CPT coding. So I mean, there's just a knowledge gap. But again, making sure that those folks are adequately trained to do those. And then of course, they're gonna throw in a productivity thing. That's a whole other conversation. But
What I find interesting is, do you know, like, where the hospital I cover? Can I tell you, every one of their op notes, all their codes are CPT, every single one. And I'm like, why? Because we have to code everything in PCS, so it means nothing. And they have, I mean, when I tell you every procedure has a CPT code, and I'm like,
well, are they coding for the physician part of it, and then they have you all or somebody else looking to code for the hospital part of it?
but how can you use a CPT code for an inpatient? I mean, I get that the physician has, but that would be a surgery. No, they have the actual CPT for the code for the procedure, not for the physician.
No, I'm saying, so are they
Oh,
coding for the physician's work for the surgery, which is why they would use the CPT code?
you mean at what?
So the doctor who comes in and actually does that surgery for that patient, there's a physician bill. They gonna get paid.
Right.
So that CPT part would be directed to that physician and the physician's work, providing that surgery. Then you got all the other stuff for the hospital related costs, um, using the PCS stuff.
But I'm understanding that, but
I mean, I don't know why they coming to you with the.
no, it's actually on the operative note, like every single one, and it's like every surgery I've ever coded, they have the procedure. You know how they have the whole list: preoperative,
Yes.
postoperative diagnosis,
Yes.
procedures performed.
Yeah.
Next to every procedure is a CPT code. And I've never understood why, because I just skip the answer and go right to. I mean, I just look at what was performed, and then I just have to convert that to a PCS code once I read through the note and make sure it was done, or see if I need any more information.
Well, maybe because they're using the same documentation for dual purposes. So maybe that's why they're both there.
No, there's only one there. It's not even a PCS. I gotta create this.
Oh, well, you're the PCS portion of the code. She said, I used to use 3M to help convert it over. Yeah. Interesting. All right, let me see. Was there anything else I wanted to mention about the? We ain't even halfway through. We're gonna have to do a part 2. Oh, I do want to say that. Wait. Let's talk about this real quick. We'll end on this. And then if we need to come back, we'll do that. Wait a minute. Let me find my screen. Where are you people? Where are you? Okay. Okay, so finding new coding staff, because I'm sure we're all interested in what that looks like for the folks, for the people, especially if you're out here in these streets looking for a position. So, according to the professional census, in the past year, how have you found coding staff to fill vacancies or handle new requirements? 50% said cross-train from other positions within the organization. 44% said networking with peers. 43% says recruiters and placement companies. 28% said hire new college graduates, and 22% said others. Common responses for others indicated the trouble finding qualified candidates. They said cross training was listed as the most effective way to attract talented coders. Yeah. Okay. At your organization, how do new staff find a coding position? 88% said job listings, professional associations, schools, or online service. 52% internal transfer within the organization. That's a huge get. Okay, I'm sorry. 43% networking with peers, 26% recruiter or placement company, and 5% said others. Job listings were mentioned by nearly 9 in 10 respondents as the leading way staff find coding jobs at their organization. Many professional associations and schools offer job listings as a service for members and alumni. Internal transfer was the second most common way for new staff to find coding jobs. About 40% of respondents indicated that new roles could be found by leveraging existing roles and professional networks. Says our hospital foundation initiated a fellowship program for novice coders to help pay for the additional training they need. Best idea for us, outpatient to inpatient intensive training. We hire experienced coders looking for a better work environment. An acute care hospital coder said, if I were the manager, I would hire new coders. They don't have all of the bad habits I see from being told this or that by prior educators, supervisors, or lead coders. Interesting. Top non-coding skills. So when hiring coders, what non-coding skills do you look for in an applicant? 83% said attitude and enthusiasm. 75% computer skills. 66% general HIM knowledge. 60% general clinical knowledge. 32% minimum education, for example, 2 or 4 year college. 23% says informatics or data analytics, and 10% said other, which they did not specify. What are the non-coding skills you look for when hiring coders? Look for people with integrity, amen, dependability, and an independent learner, a worker. Ability to fit in with our existing team, critical thinking, and reading comprehension. Reading comprehension are really important. Reading is fundamental. Problem solving ability and logical thinking. Yes. So those are some of the soft skills, non-coding skills that folks are looking for when they're hiring new coders. And I guess we'll stop there because we way over time. We'll stop there. Any thoughts? Any thoughts on this tea spilled on this HIM professional census results?
I just wanted to just briefly touch on the difficulty to find qualified applicants. If you have trouble finding qualified people, then you create qualified people.
Come on. What I say? Don't wish for it. Work for it. Exactly. And so again, that's an investment from that organization in their people. And you all know, I remember back in the day, here I am about to date myself. I just remember back in the day, you would run into people, especially in a bigger organization. So in a Uh, how would you do that now, though? As I'm thinking this through, well, let me give this scenario. Back in the day, you would see folks in the hallway. You would see folks who would come and maybe even deliver mail to the HIM department, or um, deliver documents or what have you. And then they will always ask questions. Well, what do y'all do here? And this, that, and the third. And you spark up interest and see where. And so oftentimes some of those types of positions could be feeder if they have the interest. And then you kind of talk through and mentor folks through, like, well, hey, this is health information, these are the things that we do. It's about the business of healthcare. So like, you're delivering these documents, or you're delivering that. Again, I'm dating myself, this is all pre-electronic stuff. But you would have those conversations. You can still have those conversations now in an electronic world, but you won't have that. And I think they mentioned that, being off-site and remote, you won't have that touch point with folks, but you can still network, you can still mentor folks, you can still introduce. I encourage any health information professional to introduce their profession. Oftentimes, people ask, well, what do you do? And you try to tell them, and they be like, okay, what? But it's up to us to kind of advocate for our profession and tell folks what it is that we do, so that we can get more qualified people, or people that we think may be great fits, or maybe a great fit for our profession. I don't know, Mr. Jesse, what do you think about that? How do you think?
I just think that, well, I've been saying it for years. I just think that the whole gatekeeping thing has just shot HIM in the foot, because they have wanted to pick and choose who, to the point that so many changes have happened outside of that, and it's beyond now the scope of their control, because they don't even know enough qualified people through their gatekeeping to even bring in, and the people that they bring in just don't cut the mustard. So you know,
I agree.
same old circular foolishness.
Don't get your feathers all in a ruffle, sorry. You're right. You're right. Because you only got so many friends who got so many friends who got so many friends, and you can't continue that kind of yeah, you can't continue that. That's not sustainable. And now, where you don't necessarily have that, and don't know, what do the people bring to the table when they're coming and they're applying for these positions. I don't understand why. I know they talk about, and we talked about this at our state, at OHIM, our state association. We talked about, they're like, well, the college, or talking to the people with the college, but we got a couple of buckets. We have those who are, 2-year, 4-year college people, who are degree, but are not necessarily those frontline productivity producing folks, like coders, like, release of information, like those folks. But they're looking for, like, the management type of position, or higher level analysts, that kind of stuff. But then you have the non-traditional college student, who also is maybe looking for a career change, looking for other advances. Folks are retiring later and later, or pushing that retirement age, and if they still have their faculties and want to jump over into a different career, then there are career opportunities there. So you have those people. But I always tell them, especially when they're recruiting or talking to people, they want to talk at the high school level. I think that's too late. I think you need to be further down. I think you need to be at the middle school folks, putting it, because I see, like, the STEM program, and we're supposed to be part of the STEM program. Why are you not talking through HIM as a career option to them, so that they know? And I think we've all talked about how we kind of just happened to get into this profession because somebody mentioned it to us, or it was happenstance. But at some point there needs to be some intentionality happening, and intentionally kind of create these paths through, middle school, hell, elementary, create these paths to certification, and not necessarily through college, but through awareness of who we are in our profession. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But I think that this all goes back to the gatekeeping because we all kind of stumbled into it because you kind of had to always you had to know somebody or luck up to get into it.
True.
That's the origin story because of gatekeeping. So I think that if you just brought more awareness in society, period, if they did a better job of promoting this skill set, period, that will filter down because then you could have parents who could say to their children, "Well, you can do this," because the majority of people don't know what coders do, and second, and I can tell just from my website, almost everybody who contacts me, all they say is, "I want to work from home," or I've heard about coder, but I don't know how to get started. That shouldn't be.
It
And
shouldn't.
then, to circle back to what were talking about when it comes to like different paths and see, I don't want to work for anybody. I don't care what your education is in coding if you have never coded. I could care less. You can have a PhD. If you ain't never sat down and done 20 charts a day, if you've never had to go back and forth with a provider over documentation, I'm not trying to hear it from you because you're not going to be an advocate for me because all you're going to do is the same thing happened in nursing, and I see it happening in HIM. This is why nursing is jacked up to this day. You used to have to work up. It didn't matter what degree you had. You started out bedside. You started out having to have a team and working through assignments. Then you work up to charge nurse. Then you work up to unit manager. Then you move up that way. So that way, when you're in these meetings and they talk about cutting or redoing things, you could say no, that's not going to work because. So when you have these people who come in just because of solely education and no practical experience, when they sit in these meetings, they just become parrots. And they come back and say, well, this is what they said. And they don't give any kind of pushback. They don't give any kind of narrative to why this could not work because they have this education, but they don't have any practical experience to say this is not going to work. Like you have mechanics. Mechanics will tell these people when they go to design a car, that's not going to work.
True.
It has to be a collaboration, and it's not.
I agree. And like I mentioned, I think was that last week, like the management staff needs to take interest and understanding and getting to know their team and knowing what their team, they can't advocate if they don't know, even if they've never coded per se. I mean, they probably coded way back at some point in a coding class in their career, in their college career, but they still need to have a finger on the pulse of what is actually happening and be able to advocate because they're the people in the room. The management staff are the people in the room. All the coders are not going to be able to come in. So they need to have that relationship with understanding and knowing what the job functions are, what the concerns, the challenges, the gaps are from the coding staff. So they have to have those conversations. They can't just take um, the reports or metrics or whatever. They still need to understand, well, I see that, we're skewed here, you got to dig further. Well, why? Understand the why. And that way you can better support your staff. You can better support and advocate for, hey, we're seeing more sicker people, it requires more resources, la, 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 la. I don't think that part happens. They just come in, probably oftentimes they getting beat up because it's like, well, we feel like that the cuts can come here. Well, why? This is where you get your bread and butter. Why should this always be the first line where cuts happen? You also, to your point about gatekeeping, you have folks who have come up through the ranks, and then they get this position and they hold it till they retire. So you never can you go any further because you got somebody already sitting there for 30 years. What then? I mean, your only option is to then try to find, if you want to move up, is to find another organization. But then you got to weigh that against, I've already spent time here. I've devoted X amount of years here, and this is where I want to go. But now you're stuck because the person that came up through the ranks and they not letting it go. They hold on to them reins forever, and they're not going to necessarily let it go. And while they may support the additional staff, they're not moving out the way. And you would think, I don't know. I've seen several instances of that. The crafty coder said, I agree, start earlier. I never in my life heard of coding until I was 35. Like, duh, how do doctors get paid? Most times if you say you are a coder, they're thinking IT coding. Yes, I told somebody I was a coder and they had the big eye. They was all excited. I said, whoa. I don't do that part. No. I don't know what that is. I don't know anything about that. They only coded chapter reviews. True. Upper management ain't coded no darn charts. I know several. Hold the position till they retire, and then they designate and cherry pick their replacement. Right. So you have people who've struggled and worked hard to prove themselves and show their worth and merit, and and then that the person that has cherry picked, then they gonna sit there for another 10 years. I mean, it's a no-win situation. But as we say all the time, you have to advocate for yourself. And maybe, giving 10, 20, 30 years to an organization may not be the right thing to you if, you're looking to advance into other areas because of.
Nobody's doing that anymore nowadays anyway, because of what you just said. And the good thing about this kind of industry is you have
options.
Exactly. So, and that's why most people just when they hit that brick wall, they just bounce and go somewhere else.
Hence we can't find good people. Hence, it's a snowball effect. And so somebody really needs to kind of take a look at the entire universe of that. Why is this happening? Well, you got somebody who's sitting here that's not gonna move, that's not changing, that's not whatever. I mean, so you get what you get. And then you potentially lose some great people who have invested skill, knowledge, all of the things that you need for your particular team, but because they don't see any advancement, and you can only add so many dollars in some of these levels, they can't even the coins, they can't even get to the coins because they're pigeonholed. So
my phone is getting blown up. I got to take this. I got to make a call.
Okay, so we're gonna wrap up. Okay. Thank you all. Thank you all for joining us. I told you, y'all just talking and talking. Okay, thank you for joining the Saturday morning tea, or checking out the replay. Let me ask, was the tea spilled today? I believe it was. If this information was valuable for you, help us share this message with others by sharing the video and subscribing to the channel. Be sure to follow us for more information on all things health information, compliance, revenue cycle, and medical coding. And as you leave out, don't forget to hit the thumbs up or like button. Also, check out the Coding Nurse channel on YouTube. So subscribe to both Professional Reimbursement Network and Coding Nurse. Again, this has been a great session today. Thank you all for joining. And remember, be safe, be kind, and don't wish for it, work for it. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.